After the Revolutionary War ended in 1783, the American economy went into free fall. The wartime economic bubble burst as war contracts ended and British goods flooded the American market. This created challenges for domestic producers who struggled to compete. The British now treated the United States as a foreign country and placed restrictions on American trade with the British West Indies, which was a crucial trading partner for the American colonies before the war. This restriction severely hurt American merchants. Many states had accumulated substantial debts during the war. As the war dragged on, paying the soldiers became a pressing issue. States did not have sufficient hard currency to pay the soldiers, so they resorted to issuing bonds or promissory notes, with the promise that they would be redeemed in the future. To pay off these debts, they levied heavy taxes on their citizens. These taxes further strained the already troubled economy. Falling agricultural prices, combined with high state taxes and debts, led many farmers, particularly in Massachusetts, to fall into debt. These farmers, many of whom were war veterans, had been paid for their wartime services with bonds. Due to the economic situation and a lack of hard currency, the value of these bonds plummeted. As a consequence, many farmers found themselves compelled to sell these bonds at a fraction of their face value to speculators who had both the means and patience to wait for their maturity. These speculators, in buying low and selling high, accumulated significant wealth. On the other hand, the farmers, who had once risked their lives for the country's independence, now found themselves in dire straits, essentially going bankrupt paying their own wartime salary. As if this wasn't enough, high taxation policies, especially in states like Massachusetts, exacerbated their plight. With an inability to pay their heavy taxes, many faced property seizures and were even imprisoned for debt. This juxtaposition of wealthy speculators growing richer at the expense of struggling farmers sowed the seeds of discontent and mistrust against perceived economic injustices and the state's political elite. As discontent grew, it found a leader in Daniel Shays, a former captain in the Continental Army. Under his leadership, disgruntled farmers began organizing protests against foreclosures and tax policies. But the pivotal moment in this rebellion was the march on the Federal Springfield Armory in January 1787. The objective was twofold. Acquiring arms would bolster the rebels' position and strength, and symbolically, it would challenge the perceived oppressive state government. The confrontation at the Springfield Armory did not go as the rebels hoped. On January 25th, the state militia, under General William Shepard's command, defended the armory. When Shays and his rebels approached, they were met with decisive cannon fire. The poorly equipped rebels scattered, marking the beginning of the end for Shays Rebellion. While the rebellion was quelled, its effects were far-reaching. The inability of the federal government, operating under the Articles of Confederation, to intervene and support Massachusetts in its time of need was glaringly apparent. This lack of centralized power and the implications of potential future uprisings created a milieu of unease among the country's leaders. Many national figures, including George Washington and James Madison, saw Shays' Rebellion as a clear indicator of the inadequacies of the Articles of Confederation. Their fears weren't unfounded. If a group of disgruntled farmers could shake the foundations of state power, what could a more organized insurrection achieve? Thus, the rebellion accelerated the push for a new constitutional framework. The events surrounding Shays' Rebellion were frequently referenced during the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, later in 1787. The result was a constitution that sought to balance federal and state powers, ensuring that such uprisings could be adequately addressed in the future. The creation of a bicameral legislature, provisions for a more robust federal military presence, and economic policies that balance both creditor and debtor interests were all influenced by the memories of Shays' Rebellion.